The show is made possible in part by its supporting sponsors: Blue Water Power Group of Companies, Joe's Discount Tire, and AskGuy.ca. Conversations today could go many directions. This is a success story, but there is a story to it, and that's why we're here today talking with Joshua Lyons. Thank you so much, Joshua, for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to come talk.
Yeah, well, I've been watching from afar, so to speak, for quite some time with your journey with Front Street Heat, and we'll get to that. But where did life begin for you? Where did you come from originally?
Okay, it's from the start, I guess. Port Huron Hospital in Michigan. I was actually born in the U.S. Never lived a day there in my life. My mother was from a small town in Deckerville, Michigan, and met my dad. Came over here and got together with him. And she was a employee of Port Huron Hospital. So when it was time to hug me, she popped over the bridge real quick so that I'd have citizenship in both countries. And then brought me back. And so I've never lived there, and I'm certainly as proudly Canadian as anyone can be, but actually it started out in the States.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So it's Sarnia then is where
Sarnia is where I grew up. Went to elementary school here, went to high school here, Queenie and St. Clair Secondary School before it became Great Lakes.
Yeah.
Then I went to, I spent a little bit of time in my teenage years leveraging that U.S. opportunity that I had being a citizen. I worked over there in the mall, a couple of mall jobs. Spencer Gifts was kind of the highlight one, and the exchange rate was so favorable at the time that, as a teenager, that was a pretty good amount of money.
Right.
And then I went off to university. I went to the University of Windsor, took journalism and film. Wasn't probably ready for that step, and had too much fun, played too much Mario Kart. Did that kind of stuff. So I was there on a full ride scholarship. I ended up not getting the grades that I needed to keep that full ride, and kind of realized that I wasn't ready to be taking on that at 19 years old. So came back home and then started my my bartending career, which took up the better part of 20 years after.
Right. What was school like for you? Like, did you, obviously, the university level, you kind of foobarred a bit there, but high school, in public school, did you enjoy school?
Yeah, I always liked school. I've put a premium on friends and being around people, which led me into the, bartending and now, networking with people in the business. I would say that I liked school. I was good at school. I probably, the feedback I got from a lot of teachers was, you're awfully smart, but you don't apply yourself enough, which kind of ended in the whole university experience probably. But the grades were never bad, and I enjoyed doing it for the most part. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite subject in school?
English. Yeah, I was a writer, which was also helped in the whole journey with all this stuff. I had some really memorable high school English teachers. Mr. Murphy over at St. Clair was one of the ones that I really liked. Kind of ignited the passion for writing and stuff like that.
What was it about him that you liked?
I think it was probably just the way he held himself, his character and his sense of humor. He kept you engaged. It wasn't dry and boring like a lot of teachers can be, kind of thing. And then for the dry, boring stuff, I was lucky enough to have my dad, my stepdad, the man that my mom married, who is an absolutely wonderful human being. He was the head of the math and science department at St. Clair. When I started going there, and then they got together, and I ended up wanting to stay with my friends, even though I lived out of the busing district. So he'd drive me in every day, and we'd get some time there. And then anytime I had trouble with math or science, I had a built-in tutor at home, which helped a lot. So.
How else did he? You said a wonderful human being. He's obviously had a positive impact in your life.
Oh, immensely. He's just. Probably the most giving person I've ever met in my life. Treats my mom like gold. Even now, he comes over. We're doing a bathroom renovation. I'm not the handiest guy in the world. I have my strengths in other places. So he comes over and putters around for a few hours, every day, and just chips away at getting things done. He's been a massive positive influence in my
Right.
life for sure.
That's great. Is he still teaching?
No,
He's done
he's
that?
he's retired now, but he's still like super active. Him and my mom are both super active in Kiwanis and doing stuff around the community to help out. They're getting ready for the Halloween thing that's coming up
Yep.
on the weekend too. They kind of spearhead that. He built them a little, I don't even know what to call it, a little cottage, little house thing down at the animal farm kind of thing. So
Oh.
like he's handy for the community as well as for his family. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. And what about your mom? Impact on you?
Yeah, no, my mom. If it wasn't for her husband, I would say my mom's the sweetest person in the entire world. like she found the right guy there, but she's always supportive. I've gone through my ups and downs, and that woman is a saint in my eyes for sure.
Yeah.
And is just always kind to everybody.
Yeah. So you taking that on now and to who you are and you're community oriented too. It seems like.
Yeah, I'm trying to be. It's hard to be as community oriented as I would like because trying to accomplish what we're doing right now with a small team of 2 is a lot of work, and it means that we really have to pick our battles. When we're able to do things, but we have. Made sure to get out there in the community as much as we can. We run some charity campaigns here locally with United Way, and plan on continuing to grow that too. I mean, even to the point where like when I started this, there's no option to produce sauce or do any of this stuff in Sarnia. We just didn't have the facility that's regulated the way that it needs to be to do what we need to do. But as things grow, I would love to see, the ability to bring some production and some of that stuff back to the community as well.
Nice. So we're talking about Front Street Heat, and you've got 3 sauces going. Is that right? Did I get
Yep,
that
that's right. Yeah, we just in the last year we just released Inferno, kind of a limited small bottle run kind of thing.
I got to tell you, I can't do the Inferno stuff, and some people they want it as hot as all can be.
Oh yeah.
I had a friend, he's passed now, but he would just tell the restaurant, just make them as hot as you can.
Yeah.
And he'd be sweating the whole time.
I used to get those guys too when I served.
I just don't understand. What is it about that? Do you think? Is it the challenge? Is it is it taste? Is it?
Well, the funny thing about it. I mean, I think some people like to do it for bragging rights and to impress.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
And that's fine. But I mean. There's actually, a similar reaction. There's a euphoric kind of high when you get to a high enough spice level, which actually does it gives you an effect that come across some people in my travels that had problems early in life with drugs and then switched to hot peppers because the capsaicin in the peppers at a high enough level actually can give a euphoric rush, and it really makes people feel funny and good. So there's different reasons people do it, and some people just like things spicy. It's not really what we're about. Front Street Heat was specifically designed to be overly mild, so that with hot sauce being as fun as it is in the world right now, and it's something with the success of hot ones and COVID kind of getting people more interested in playing with different flavors and stuff like that. Hot sauce has been a huge thing, but a lot of people don't think they can even enjoy hot sauce. So Front Street Heat was kind of made with 2 things in mind. One, that there isn't a proudly Canadian national brand of hot sauce.
Okay.
And 2, the hot sauce community can grow if you make something that gives them that little bit of spice so they can have that excitement and experience that and play with hot sauce, but don't make them hurt for 3 hours afterwards.
Right.
So
that'd be my concern.
And that was the start. All the time knowing that we get into Front Street Fire and Front Street Inferno and give the pepperheads and the heat lovers what they want as well. But the initial thought was, there's nothing, proudly Canadian out there. There's nothing thicker base, more premium base with premium ingredients, rather than just kind of being all vinegar and salt. Which, I mean, that all has its place, but there was a void in the market where there just wasn't that beautiful thick culinary ingredient that had balance of flavor, and that's kind of where we decided to say, okay, let's be flavor first. Let's give 95% of people the opportunity to try a hot sauce that they can palate and they can handle, and people really like that. So you had people who love spice, and Front Street Heat might not have been spicy enough for them. They still appreciated it for the flavor,
Okay.
for being able to cook with it, for it being an alternative to the few options that we always have. Whereas then there was this whole other population of people who would look at hot sauce and go, oh, I can't do hot sauce. I'm not doing that.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Front Street Heat was specifically designed for people like you.
Right. I've tried the basic, I call it the basic one,
Yep.
sorry. Because for a lot of reasons you just talked about, I'm just like, I just don't want to put myself in that position, whatever. But hearing it the way you described it now, it really is a culture, isn't it? The hot sauces or the sauces in general?
Yeah, no, like I was kind of alluding to before, like with the popularity of things like hot ones and stuff like that. It's like even going to we've been the last 3 years involved with the New York City Hot Sauce Expo. First year, Front Street Fire won an award there in the hot division. The next year they asked us to come be vendors, so we went there and vended and got to meet people in that industry. And the third year, this year, we just got back from sponsoring it and helping with some content creation.
Yeah.
Being in those buildings, in those atmospheres, just kind of crazy. Like hot sauce people are almost like a rock star kind of industry.
Yeah,
It's really elevating. Even like we became friends with a wonderful man named Smokin' Ed Curry. He's kind of the godfather of the pepper industry in the U.S. And he just released a new pepper that is, he's the guy who invented the Carolina Reaper.
Oh, wow.
So, pretty huge accomplishment, being the hottest pepper in the world. Well, he just released a pepper that he's been hanging on to for the better part of 10 years, under lock and key and perfecting, called Pepper X. And they just kind of presented it on Hot Ones with Sean Evans and those guys, and they tried it for the first time, and it's 4 times hotter than the Carolina Reaper. So like,
I've heard of the Carolina Reaper.
yeah,
That's
well,
hot,
you're
right?
about to hear about Pepper X quite a bit, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah, because it from a heat standpoint blows the Carolina Reaper out of the water. So,
Yeah.
And just that interest in the industry and the way that you see people kind of flock to some of these people, and like while we were down there, we had the opportunity to meet some celebrities that are kind of in that world now. Guys like Sean Evans, the guy that hosts Hot Ones,
Yep.
Incredible interviewer. Dustin Poirier, the ex-UFC champion.
Oh, okay.
He actually collaborated with another Canadian company, Heartbeat Hot Sauce, up in Thunder Bay, and got to spend some time with Al, the owner of that business, and Dustin, who actually had Al create a hot sauce for him. So he's got Poirier's hot sauce, and that's becoming kind of like the official hot sauce of the UFC and all that kind of stuff. So it's really like gone from a kind of a niche thing that only some people liked to, again, like not only with the success in media with hot sauce, but also the fact that hot sauce companies have extraordinarily stepped up their game and have focused more on flavor and tasting good, so that people want it in their fridge to play around with while they cook at home.
Right.
So and you're seeing that trickle down, and now celebrities are getting interested in having their own brands and hot sauces and stuff like that because of that. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a cultural phenomenon that I kind of jumped in at the right time, like right before it kind of started to boom. And
So I'm curious to our audience, for you who are watching, have you tried Front Street Heat, and which one is your favorite? If you have, let us know in the comments, and we'll be curious to see the responses there. Let's back up a little bit
tag
here.
at Top Shelf Canada if you do. Throw some pictures up there. We always love that stuff.
Yeah. I want to talk about the branding too in a bit, but let's back up a little bit to your bartending years. Where did you start bartending? Do you remember?
My first job, my high school girlfriend was a longtime bartender at the Krabby Joe's here locally.
Oh yeah, okay.
And over my time, just being in the restaurant and visiting her, I ended up becoming friends with the management staff and everybody at Krabby Joe's here. They decided to open a Krabby Joe's in Wallaceburg, and it was going to be under corporate ownership and management for a period of time. So what they wanted was a manager that was experienced to go and GM that place.
Right.
And that happened to be a guy that I had got to know really well, and I hadn't had any experience, and I was a male and all that kind of stuff, and I was young, so like getting a bartending job thinking that I'd be good at it, it's not the easiest thing in the world.
Right.
So I said, hey, like, you're going out to Wallaceburg. If I drive out, every day, can you let me bartend, let me get some experience under my belt? And he said yes. And so for about a year and a half, I drove to Wallaceburg for every shift and got the experience, and then ended up coming back in here and starting locally at Stokes by the Bay. Which is where Adena, my partner now, me and her met 20 years ago.
Right.
So we were friends for about 20 years. We were bartended together, all that kind of stuff. And then later in life, about 3 years ago or so, ended up connecting and getting together kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
Yeah.
And were you there the whole time? Is it for your career? Or did you go to different places?
I popped around a little bit. When I finished, I went to school again. So I went to school a few times. All of them have helped me get where I'm going, but none of them were my career path. So they're all kind of just moments. So I did the journalism and film thing in Windsor, and then when I got back here and I started bartending, I started back at Lambton, and I took business human resources.
Okay.
So after I got the business human resources diploma finished, my best friend from the time I was about 6 years old, and one of the reasons why this sauce was even possible, is a guy named Wayne Blythe, and he worked for Tim Hortons head office, and so he was the guy who for about 14 years, he developed all the baked goods, the cookies, the muffins, the bagels, all that stuff for Tim Hortons. He did it, 17 different ways, presented it to marketing, they'd pick which way they'd want to go, and that was his job. So when I graduated from human resources, I took a pause from the start of that bartending career, and I ended up going and working for Tim Hortons head office. I worked in the operations department, mostly like store openings. So they'd send us on the road either in Canada or the U.S. because they were trying to expand to the U.S. at the time. Mm-hmm. And we'd go in, a crew of 4 or 5 of us, usually like 20-something-year-olds, and we'd stay there anywhere from 5 days to a month, and we'd set up the store, support the store, train the owners, train the managers, do all that kind of stuff. So I did that for a period of time, and then kind of that's when my daughter Peyton was born. I got a little homesick and didn't like being away because she was here, and
Sure.
I had to keep commuting back and forth.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming back home and starting my bartending career back up and going back to school again for CPAT. I kind of went from bartending at Krabby Joe's in Wallaceburg, to Stokes by the Bay, to going to live up in the Oakville area and working for Tim Hortons head office, to coming back here and taking another program in CPAT, and I also started bartending again, and I started doing that at Eastside Mario's. Eastside Mario's was great for my serving and bartending career, because if you can work at that place as a bartender or server, you can pretty much do it anywhere.
Just because it's so busy all the time, or
some of the people who work there call it serving boot camp. It's because if you think about the experience at an Eastside Mario's, it's not just go order your drinks, order your food, and away you go. It's unlimited salad, unlimited bread.
Oh yeah,
all of that. So
you're constantly moving.
There's always birthdays, that there's singing and everything going on. So it's constant hustle, making sure that people's salads, drinks, soups, bread, birthdays are taken care of. So once you go work somewhere else after that, it's a breeze. You're almost kind of kicking your butt, going, okay, well, this is all I have to do.
And did you do the singing for the birthdays?
Oh yeah. I've not generally been a shy person. It's not the singing that bothered anybody. It was the having to announce to the
Everybody
attention, everybody.
Yeah.
Look at me. I just I did that part of it, where some people didn't want to, but man, was it ever a pain in the butt when you're like 10 tables deep and behind on things, and then you had to stop everything you were doing.
Do the birthday song.
Yeah.
At least they didn't make you stand on tables and dance.
Yeah. And then that parlayed into a stint with Lizards and Baines that were the same owner. I spent some time at both of those. And then the majority of the end of my bartending career was at Patty Flaherty's.
Right. So wow, a lot of different directions you've taken, and I would say that it would add to your experience for helping you with what you're doing now. But you mentioned your partner Adena. You said it's the two of you involved in this, really. What does she do? What's her role in all of this?
Yeah. So when me and Adena started dating and kind of explored that whole thing, I was kind of, a team of one. I had my best friend Wayne for the culinary side of things, but as far as the business side of things, it was kind of me running around. I was still bartending at the time. I was coaching my kids' ball team, and I was trying to like go visit, sell into these stores, check stock into these stores, like do everything at once. So I was on the road constantly too. So I was like, my head was spinning like crazy. I was trying to get help with the marketing side of things because I didn't have time to spend on it. And the companies, like I'd worked with weren't really hitting the mark that I wanted. And Adena kind of came in and said, like she's got an artsy side to her. So
Right.
she was like, I might be able to kind of teach myself some of this stuff. And so she like ended up, we got Photoshop and all those, graphic design programs, and she started self-teaching herself, and then she became very good at it. She has a great eye for spacing, for color, for design, and started making things look really good. Started getting her to make the labels, because like label expense is a gigantic one for
Right.
a small company that doesn't have any money behind it.
Right.
Having that kind of stuff. So she, the labels that you see now are Adena's designs.
Cool.
And then, anywhere else she could help. She just taught herself as much about the business as she could. When COVID hit, and we had to kind of, shut things down as far as expanding because none of the stores were.
Yeah. How did that affect you? Like
It was brutal because we were just getting momentum.
Was that make or break time too?
Well, it could have. Yeah, it could have been, because basically, like, I was just getting the momentum in Metro. Where they were letting me kind of bust out of the small local 13 stores in southwestern Ontario and into the GTA, and we were also about to get things started with Sobeys and Foodlands.
Wow.
And then COVID hit, and everything was, nope, don't go to the stores. We're not taking any new products. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay,
and then of course sales dropped.
what do we do now, right? Mm-hmm. Like we still got the expenses of the business, but now we can't forward it at all. So it could have really hurt our momentum, but we turned our attention to what was happening with COVID and said, okay, if we can't spend our time like necessarily selling sauce and trying to expand into new stores, maybe we can do something to help people in the community. So we talked to Dave Brown here at United Way, and said that we wanted to do something, and maybe even we did have. We basically started a partnership with them and United Way Centrade called Light Your Grill and Chill. And anywhere we were in Canada where a bottle could be bought, $1 from that bottle went to a COVID-related cause through United Way to help people support people, type of thing.
And that was a great campaign, right?
Yeah, it went really well, and it actually did open the door we didn't expect with the Sobeys. The Sobeys liked the idea of the campaign so much that we were able to make like a displayer stand, and they actually did accept new product into new stores. So Adena, the point was Adena was the one on the phones calling those Sobeys and talking to the managers about the campaign and helping us do something good at the same time.
She's working away in the background.
Yeah,
right now as we're doing this.
She's over there designing something, I think, right now. But yeah, she takes on a lot of roles, just kind of wherever we need her.
Yeah, that's an important partnership too. The personal side of it, and then to be able to take that into a business side of it, and make it work, make both sides work.
Oh, right? Yeah, and that can be extraordinarily difficult because you're generally you have people go off to their 9-to-5 jobs and then come home and spend their evenings with their partner. But when you spend your 9-to-5 and your evenings together, and sometimes you're in a cramped little office because it's challenging, right?
Well, and then there's family too, right? Because you've got little ones, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So balance of life.
Yep, it's been that way since the start. It's trying to balance the things that you normally do, the kids, the extracurriculars, and then still fit the business in somehow.
I haven't asked this question yet. How did you get started in the sauce business, if you will? Like, what did you wake up one day and notice something, or? No,
it was at Patty Flaherty's. I was bartending. I got done a shift, and I sat down with a drink and a salmon and leek pie, which was one of my favorite dishes there. It's like a pie crust with mashed potatoes and salmon, and then this like white decadent cream sauce over top of it.
All right.
And I was sitting there eating it and kind of went, like this would be good if it had a little bit of kick to it. Like this could be a really good like spicy dish, not spicy, but like just a little something, right?
Okay.
But the options at the bar were Frank's, Tabasco, your regular, and you don't take something like that this decadent cream dish and start pouring vinegar on it.
Right.
So I was like, why don't I have another option here that's like a thicker, more premium, something with a different base than vinegar, which is where the roasted red pepper came from. And then that also got me thinking, like, why doesn't Canada have its own condiment level national brand that's in, when you go to the grocery store, you see Frank's, you see Tabasco, you see Cholula, you see all those. Why don't we have a Canadian option there? So that was the idea. Like I said, I was lucky enough that my best friend from the time I was like 6 years old ended up being one of the top culinary scientists in the country and a product developer and a brilliant guy. So kind of came up with some inspiration from some food trends and basically said, like, okay, these are the base ingredients that I want to work with. Here you go, Wayne, like, balance this, make it beautiful. And that's what he does, right? Like, he knows how to make sure that it's hitting all your palate points. You get your sweet, and you get your tart, and you get your savory tastes and all that stuff. And he sent me back a sample from what he kind of did in his lab. And I brought it to Patty's and started letting people try it. And the reactions were really, really good. Wow. So then I started to go to some other restaurants that I'd had connections over the years with. And
you built a lot of relationships in different places.
Yeah. Well, even if I didn't work at that place, I probably worked with half the staff at that place somewhere, right? Yeah. So started seeing, what they thought, and then started, sampling it at local restaurants and having people carry it on the tables and do that kind of stuff. And from there, it got enough notoriety that Kyle DeLoof over at Davy Jones was willing to put it in the grocery store. So and then from there, a good friend of mine from the time I was super young, actually, Joe Parr, he introduced me to the guy who was running GMing Superstore here locally, and he was a super nice guy and ended up saying, you know what, bring me in 20 cases and we'll make a display and we'll put it out on the sign and all that kind of stuff. And then once that happened, his name's Rob Ware. He's a solid guy too. He's out of town now. I think he's either London or Windsor he's in now. But then Frank from Metro here, who's been a rock for them for years and years and years, kind of started he had a mutual friend of mine, and she was bragging about how she got it at Superstore and had a picture up on the internet. And so Frank piped up, and I didn't know Frank at the time, but I know Frank now, and it makes sense that he piped up like, whoa, why the hell don't we have this? Type thing. Okay. And
so now they're fighting over you.
Yeah, well, and then I met with him, and he was instrumental in getting it outside of Sarnia, because he got me introduced into the Metro local program, which was 13 stores in southwestern Ontario.
Yeah. Did you always have the vision of it going outside of Sarnia, or
yes, yes. If it was going to work, it was going to work not as a small niche hot sauce. It was going to work because Canada didn't have its own national brand to be proud of. So it was either going to be it's across Canada or it's nothing, and we move on to something else.
And you are all across Canada now?
Yeah.
Every province?
Yeah, it's in superstores across Canada. It's in Metros, Sobeys,
How does it make you feel?
Whole Foods. Weird.
Weird? Yeah.
I don't know. It's good. You get
exciting.
You get a lot of pride and excitement from it, but you also get a lot of pressure and stress from it too, right? Like, grocery isn't exactly the easiest game to live in. There's a lot of big players there, and there's
competition,
a premium on shelf space. So the fact that we're lined into planograms at Superstore and Metro and these places, there's a lot of pressure to make sure that things continue to go well and that you keep that real estate, because there's a gazillion other companies, especially with how hot sauce has boomed, that want to take that space. Yeah. So it certainly is a stressful thing, but also like a really cool, and like getting pictures from people across the country, like people that I've known that have ended up out west or in the Yukon or like somewhere crazy, and just saying like, I got this at the store here, this is crazy, it makes you smile. Yeah. But at the same time, it comes with like,
and this is just with the two of you.
Yeah.
Like, do you need to grow your team more at some point?
Certainly. And that's, it's going to come in the future, but it's amazing how long it takes to get, like, I didn't come from any money at all, so it's not like there's any, rich daddy in the background who's going to bail me out.
I was going to say, so how did you finance all this?
It was $8,000 that I'd saved up from Patty's, and from there it's the success of the sauce that had to be dumped back into the business, and continually, like, still to this day I don't pay myself the salary that is comfortable to live, because to do something on a national scale without money behind you and without a team behind you, you basically have to do that. So it's been kind of, scratch and fight to make sure cash flow stays healthy the entire time.
There was no let's go look for an investor, or you were trying to keep this just
there have been moments, but truth be told, it's been hard to even take the time to go seek that out, just because it's been. We've got some investment now.
Dragon's Den.
Well, yeah, no, I actually did. I did apply for it at one point. It was right before COVID, and I had my audition to head up to, I think it was Toronto, and the day before I was set to go, COVID hit. And they're like, everything's canceled, and that was the end of that kind of thing. So, and then from there, it started to feel like it might be a little bit ludicrous, but it was manageable on the success that the product was having to continue to grow it. Now, at some point, with the scale it's got now, it needs more money behind it, because you have to start putting out ad spend, marketing, all that kind of stuff, and it's important. But picking the right time to start pushing the button
just
on
to
that,
be able to, like you said earlier, just to be on a planogram, pardon me, to be on that shelf, on the top shelf, is that's a huge accomplishment. Like, I think most people wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah, well, I didn't either, to be honest. I got to give some kudos to Mike and Marion Brovnowski. I hope I pronounced their name right.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, we called them the Red Racer couple at Patty's. They'd come in, and they're the cutest, nicest people, and they'd always have a pint of Red Racer and just kind of hang out. And they're involved with a company called Tech Alliance out of London. And when I first started, I basically had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to register an Ontario business, anything. I was a bartender.
Right.
So I knew he was, kind of in the business world. So I said, Mike, can I pick your brain for a few minutes? And he sat down and he got me started. And those two have been like supporters the entire time.
Oh, great.
So yeah, honestly, it's not because I had any great background in the industry or in business even. It was more that I was willing enough to ask a whole bunch of people that were more knowledgeable and smarter than I was what the answers were to every step of the thing.
Right. And that's obviously been a huge part of the success of this. The name Front Street Heat. Being from here, I got a rough idea why it's called that, but where did that come from?
Yeah. Okay. So, I thought it sounded catchy. It came, to be honest with you, where it first came from was where putting street and heat together was. I was at my dad's years ago, and he had a friend who had a truck that the truck said street heat on it, and for some reason that stuck with me. But when I was starting out and trying to figure out a name, I wanted something that tied to the Sarnia community that was relevant. So our downtown that I've always been, hoping we can rejuvenate and make something spectacular.
Yeah.
And I see signs of that happening. I wanted to tie it to that, but also wanted to make it relevant in a national way. And with Front Street being, an iconic street in Toronto, as well as, there being front streets in many cities throughout Canada and the U.S., it had a relatable name that tied to my community, but also could take that step to a national brand.
Yeah, great. And speaking of national brands, do you see yourself like each province, for example, has their own theme or representation? Would you expand the brand into what am I trying to say? Like into local communities or provinces in general?
Yeah, probably not, because
we're
trying to be Canada's as a country. The one tempting thing is to do something specifically for Quebec, because Quebec's always kind of had their own separate identity and don't necessarily care about being Canada's hot sauce. So there have been thoughts of like should we do something for Quebec in general, but at this point there's so many things that are coming up that are more important to focus on as far as forwarding the original set that probably not on the highest part of my priorities to individualize it by province right now.
This has been quite a journey for you. It's been 7 years now, you said?
Yeah, coming on 7 years.
7 years, right. What would you say you've learned the most from this journey so far?
I would say that, especially in the business world, if you don't get things, done yourself and really stay on everything, like nobody's going to hand you anything. So, doing something like this is like as successful as it has been, didn't come without like absolutely sacrificing, a lot of your time, energy,
family time.
Yeah, and that if you want to start a business, I mean, it's an amazing thing to be your own boss, but think very hard because it consumes you, and that's one of the things that I think like I've learned is that there's no turning this off at any point in time. You go to bed and you're thinking about
right.
the issues or the fires you have to put out. So it's definitely like it's not for everybody, and it would be easy to throw your hands up and say, no, I can't do this anymore. So if you're going to do something like that, I would say make sure that you've got the energy to follow through with it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the journey is really part of the journey has been being a bartender and working in different places, even before you knew you were going to do this, right? Would you say you were kind of building some skills, I guess, to
I
be
would
able
say
to be in that point?
What I've kind of always said when I've talked to people about, all of the school and the different working experiences and such that I had is that like none of them were what I was going to end up doing, but pretty much all of them contributed to the skill set that I ended up with. Yeah. So, I mean, even back from high school, like being into English and writing, that has helped with, the writing of emails, the copyright on marketing, right. Like all that kind of stuff. And then I did a job too that I didn't even mention, for a market research company out of Toronto called Enigma. And they used to do work for Bayfest. That's how I got introduced to them.
Okay.
A buddy of mine, Tim Bain, was on a co-op with Michael Harker, the owner of Enigma, and they got the contract to do surveys in the park for Bayfest. And so Tim got to get some of his buddies when we were young to go and get these surveys done. You get paid, whatever, $20 an hour, and you get free passes to the show, which was really cool. So we did that. And then I ended up meeting the owner, and we did a good job, and me and him hit it off. So then he started asking me if I would be willing to go on the road and lead crews in different places. Mm-hmm. So then he ended up sending me to New Orleans, Boston, Pasadena for the Rose Bowl, Vegas, a bunch of these places where there would be these huge music festivals and sporting events, and I would meet and train a team of surveyors, make sure that they got their job done and they were trained properly, and then collected all the information and then brought it back to Michael, and then he would do the analysis that the company, the event, was trying to get for raising money for grants or raising money for sponsors or all that kind of stuff. So kind of doing that put me in the middle of event marketing. I did a whole series of things for Red Bull sponsored events, and just kind of saw how events can be a really fun way to market a product, and how they did that. And I always kind of had that in the back of my mind with the hot sauce thing too, because I feel the same way about that, and we'll be hopefully doing more stuff like that. We've done a little bit, but so that contributed. And then business program at Lambton, obviously you pick up some there. CPET learned, mostly taught me how to get my ass kicked and have to battle through it.
Yeah.
And then my time at Tim Hortons taught me how a corporate structure thinks, how marketing works on that level, because it wasn't just like being on the road. We had a lot of corporate meetings where it was high level marketing that they were about to roll out, and why they were doing it, and what it meant.
And while you were doing all of this, before the Front Street Heat and Top Shelf Canada all came along or got started, what were you thinking you were going to do?
Initially, I wanted to be a sports writer.
Really?
Yeah, that's why I went for journalism. That was kind of the initial plan. Then
there's a left turn.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I found out. First of all, didn't get the grades to stay in school, and
although that could relate in, because sports people like to have barbecues.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then Top Shelf could have some hockey ties in the future, hopefully. So, for sure. That was my passion. My passion was writing, and I loved sports at the time. So I was really into that idea. But then I kind of found out that journalism, journalists tend to, unless you're really, really good, even if you are good, you spend 20, 30 years, working for not much money and a pretty tough life. And then if you're really good, maybe, you make it in some meaningful way. But then I just kind of thought that wasn't realistic. And I ended up having my daughter. And that's when I kind of made the turn into CPET, because, obviously, if you live in the city, the amount of money you can make, it was a more pragmatic choice. But then I decided that I'm not at all a plank guy. I don't even like climbing heights. So how was I going to deal with ladders? It was, okay, I'll do it for the money type thing, but my head was never really in it. So I graduated that and said, no, I'm a bartender. I'm gonna go back. And over that time, learned how great a profession bartending is. That also contributed to that skill set. But also the amount of money you can make. People underestimate how good a career that actually is.
It's a career.
Yeah, until you start breaking down, because it's a grind, and I've got a crappy ankle and knee right now, probably because of all of that. But I kind of settled into, this is what I love doing. This is what I'm gonna do. I make good money doing this, and I kind of had settled on that. And then the idea for Front Street Heat kind of came, and it changed everything.
Yeah. Well, obviously a positive direction for all of this. And again, for those of you who are watching, make sure you're putting your comments down. What's your favorite sauce here? And we'll respond to that. Let's get away from the sauce for a little bit when you're not working on that and you got family. And A, how do you find the time? And B, what do you do with that time?
Well, it's hard to find the time right now. You always live with a little bit of guilt that you can't do enough or be active enough with the things, friends, family, all that kind of stuff that you'd like to. But they're very understanding about that stuff too. But yeah, no, we like to. We like to get out and go to different cities, to different events. We popped over to different hot sauce events and different stuff like that. That's kind of relevant, but it's also fun to be a part of those things. So we try to, a lot of times.
So even when you're away from the sauce, you're still around.
We try to right now incorporating personal time and business time is the only way that we can do things. I'm a big football fan, so I at least have my Sundays that.
Do you have your team?
I'm a Bears fan. Yeah,
Bears fan.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. My daughter's named Peyton after Walter Payton.
Oh wow!
It's not overly fun to be a Bears fan at the moment, but I'm big into fantasy football too. I have a long-term fantasy football league that I started back when we were teenagers, and the same group of guys. Half of them are in Ottawa now, and half of them are in Seria.
Cool.
And we have this thing where we get together halfway, and we have a whole draft weekend, and a league event night, and a golf tournament, and a league breakfast, and we geek out on it pretty good. Right. So my Sundays and my fantasy football are kind of like my outside of.
And how old's your daughter?
15.
15. Okay,
Yeah.
right. And what does she see in all of this? Do you know? Is she learning? Did she help out?
Yeah, when she was younger, she was pretty cute. She'd come on demos when I do demos in stores, and it's I'm pretty good at selling things. When I do pretty well when I'm at demos. It's always been a skill set for me. But you put Peyton out there to sell sauce, and she would go there as an 8, 9-year-old, 7-year-old, whatever, and everyone would buy a bottle from it. The sauce was good, but how do you say no to that? So yeah, she used to go around and do demos and stuff like that with me, but now she's busy, being a high school kid and all that kind of stuff. So not so much doing that now.
Yeah, but would have to be understanding as a young child too that dad's busy.
Yeah, certainly. Tough I'm sure for a child to understand, but at the same time, she was, she saw what was going on, so I think she understood.
Does she have some aspirations right now? What she wants to do?
Yeah, I think that she's actually going to a leadership conference in Niagara.
Okay, nice.
Coming up, I just found out, which is pretty cool. I think that she'll. I don't know where she'll land. I think that she'll end up doing something. I could see her getting into politics. I could see her getting into.
Yeah.
I could see her traveling the world. She's a very ambitious little thing.
Right.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
She's young,
to see.
figuring it out. You mentioned politics there. Do you follow politics at all?
I try to. It's hard to find the hours in the day to get too terribly involved. But that's something I look forward to after I get things a bit more settled. But I do have my own views. I'm an opinionated person, and
Are you?
yeah, I'd like to be more involved in things like that down the road. But right now, it's my head's spinning with sauce so much that it's hard to pay too much attention. We did get invited to go down to Queen's Park a couple of weeks ago. And meet with all the ministers and stuff like that. And I got to meet the Speaker of the House, who told me that he'd been buying Front Street Heat for like a year and a half.
I saw
already.
that post about that. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
So
Which Speaker is that? Is that the new one or the old one?
Like I said, I can't pay enough attention to tell you all of that. But
yeah.
But it was a pretty cool experience, and just being in that building was pretty neat. So.
Yeah. And so why would they, like, you were invited? Who invited you?
The Chamber of Commerce here, Karen McEachran and the group over there. They wanted to. They got invited to bring like a little showcase of Sarnia businesses and to kind of show that to the ministers and everything like that. And we got to sample some sauce with people. They served it with the breakfast that they had for all the ministers after they were out of their meetings and stuff. So it was a pretty cool experience. And that was like right coming off. We went up to Toronto to do that, and then had to fly out to go to do the New York City Hot Sauce Expo thing.
You got a busy few weeks.
It was a couple of weeks of.
I know when I reached out originally, you're like, "Well, we're going to have to try to figure out when we can do this." We're coming off a pretty busy time right now. Yeah. Now you talked about. Are you a cook?
No, bartender. Like I said, I worked in restaurants, which gives me a little bit of insight into culinary, obviously. But also, like I took my bartending pretty seriously. I ended up, being sent by Patty's up to like a bartending boot camp in Toronto for a week. And
Patty Flaherty's great people there too.
Yeah, amazing. And they were amazing, letting me, like, when I first launched it, like I was serving tables and I was allowed to bring the hot sauce to people's tables and let them try it on everything. So like that was an ongoing demo all the time. So I owe them big for letting me do that. But I learned how to balance flavor through bartending, not through cooking.
Right.
But then also had this amazing asset of, my childhood best friend who was an elite culinary scientist.
So who does the cooking at home then?
We both do.
Yeah.
I love to cook. I am a good cook.
Yeah.
But time is everything. Yeah.
That's why I don't cook. If I cook, I say to Jennifer, "Where do you want to go tonight?" That's my cooking ability.
I look forward to those.
I burn water, so that's good.
That takes talent.
Yeah. Let's fast forward 5 years from now. There's that old cliche question: where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Oh Lord.
Have you thought that far ahead?
Well, I see myself here trying to build things more into this community and trying to forward it. I hope that it keeps doing what it's doing. We're just about to work into U.S. export, so it's not
that's
only
interesting. I bet
not only Canada's hot sauce for Canada, but also like Canada is becoming very renowned for having high quality food products in the export markets. So not only even the U.S., but I've heard of a lot of Canadian companies exporting proudly to Great Britain, to Japan, to Australia, to these different places. So there's an opportunity there, and I kind of wanted to look at this not only as like, Canada's probably a national brand that every Canadian can have in their fridge to use, but also something that the world gets a little piece of that Canadian flavor. So
the journey has just begun for you and Adena and everybody else that's helping you along the way, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, being in Sarnia, this is where you intend to keep your feet planted.
Yeah, this is where I'm from. This is I can't 100% say I know what life holds in the future, but I have no intention.
What do you like about Sarnia? Like what is it about? Like, even if you weren't doing this, what is it about Sarnia?
I like that it's it's big enough to not be completely boring, but it's small enough that, like, I've spent time in Oakville, Mississauga, Toronto, where it takes you 2 hours to do something that takes you 15 minutes in Sarnia.
Right.
But we still have access.
At the busiest time of day, hitting every red light.
We still have access to a city like London, really close. We still have access to the U.S. and Detroit and all that stuff. So, you can kind of get. I like the location. I like the waterfront. I like, obviously my friends and family are here, and that stuff's important. So, it's fun to be able to do something here that makes people have some pride in their community, that there's a product out there that's across Canada that's from here, and that I'd like to keep it that way and keep kind of building up this community that way.
Perfect. Josh, thank you so much.
No, thank
Great
you.
story, and I'm going to keep watching the journey here, and we'll have to revisit this, say, about a year from now and see where you're at.
I'd love
now,
that.
too.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for doing it.
No problem. You can all share this around. You know, I always say click the like and the love, but the share button is the most important button, so we can share Joshua's story and the others that I interview here. And don't forget to put your comments down there. Have you even tried the sauce yet? We're going to put the link to the website to where you can go and get some, right? Thanks again, Joshua, and thanks to all of you. That's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We'll see you next time here on the show.
Thanks,
Bye
guys.
for now. That's it. Cool.
All right.